Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Citizen Sports Talk. Jacob Smith, joined by Kaden Reinhard. Again, another exciting week of basketball matchups and maybe the last full week for at least until possibly after next week, given the forecast that's scheduled. We're filming on Friday night, and Saturday and Sunday is going to be some fun. Wintry mix, Caden.
As it shows, I guess only, time will tell. Sometimes the mountains can block some stuff, some snow from coming in. We'll see. I guess, we can only hope for the best, honestly, at this point. I've graduated from high school. I'm anti-snow at this point. It was nice to get out of school, but now it just impedes everything.
I was going to say, I have to agree with you on that one slightly, specifically because it limits the basketball that we get to cover in the winter. But obviously, we got to start with this week's basketball coverage. Starting on Tuesday, you had the pleasure of calling the Lady Buffs Bobcats game at Floyd with Bradley Connor. What was your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it was the classic, I guess, rivalry matchup for the Buffaloes, two teams that bleed black and gold. Two teams that were entering on, two separate win streaks. The Buffaloes were entering their home contest on a 5-game win streak. And then the Bobcats, they had won their last two. Buffaloes were also 4-0 in district play. So, the Bobcats almost kind of had something to prove, had something to take away from them, take away that 0. And they played aggressive early. The Bobcats jumped ahead to a 7-0 lead. The Lady Buffs, they responded quickly. They tied it back up at 7. It was 7-7. After that, it was all Bobcats. The Buffaloes never led. Really just the defensive presence, I'd say, was the main contributing factor for Radford coming away with that victory. Kirsten Carter was relentless on the steals. If I had to give an estimate for how many steals there were, the Bobcats probably had at least 30. It was just dominant. The full court press, I remember it was the second quarter, even into the third quarter, there was a good 4-minute stretch where the Buffaloes really even struggled getting it past half court, inbounding the ball. Jazzy Hidalgo as well for the Bobcats was another big offensive contributor. Really them two, her and Carter, were really just combined. They both were in the double digits.
Yeah, and I think obviously we'll go back to the Wednesday game in a little bit, but maybe the result Tuesday translated to the 24 hours following that loss for the Lady Buffs. But first, talking about a game that was definitely on a list, or definitely something to highlight this week, regardless of the outcome. The Buffaloes Bobcats for the boys, always a treat for a game, if you will. Of course, at Radford. So, we talked about the dog pound for the Buffaloes Martinsville game a few weeks ago. The boys at Martinsville. It came down to the final 5 seconds of the game, Caden. Buzzer beater, 2 seconds left on the clock. And Radford was able to come away with that win 51-50, handing Floyd County their second loss of the season, and just by a mere 1 point. We kind of talked a little bit before. Some thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's a hard place for the Buffaloes to win, kind of historically. Even, you can go back the past 2 decades. I'm pretty sure it's only about one victory in Radford over the Bobcats. So those losses hurt a little bit more. They sting a little bit more. You just got to move on from them. To come that close, it seems like, I just said it, only one victory, but it seems like they're always, so close. So it's always just those kind of games that the Buffaloes end up matching up against with the Bobcats, I think, just those close games.
Yeah, and we talked about it at the beginning, or before we got started. You kind of mentioned it just now, like it's almost an annual loss. You hate to say it like that, but it just so happens to be that that's kind of one that you always drop, the one at Radford. But, of course, a district opponent, they know what you're capable of doing. They know your tendencies, especially this late in the season. They came back and won that game. Floyd County had a double-digit lead at one point, and you just got to give the Bobcats credit for the win on Tuesday.
Yeah, they fought through it. literally up until that final whistle with the game-winning shot, they never lost their tenacity. So definitely have to give it to the Bobcats there.
Yeah, absolutely. But transitioning to, we talked about Martinsville briefly, talking about the trip to the dog pound that the Buffaloes had a few weeks ago. Now the Cavaliers got to do that for the boys basketball. A 30-point loss for Carroll County, 73-43, and that was their fourth straight loss at the time. We'll go into that a little bit later, but it was their third straight loss in district play as well. So Carroll County hitting a little struggle bus mid-season here. And then girls versus Martinsville were able to pick up their third win of the season, 50-43. Again, their third win of the season, and their first in the Three Rivers this year, or second in the Three Rivers this year. Excuse me. They had the win at Glenvar.
Yeah, you mentioned the boys. Their loss kind of is continuing their losing streak, getting to a 4-game losing streak. But that girls game that snapped a 4-game losing streak for them actually. So good for them. Head coach Howard Mayo to get back in the win column for them.
Yeah, already doing better than they did last year. Only won 2 games last year, and they were both to the Glenvar Highlanders team that we'll talk about in a little bit. Hasn't won a game since in the last 2 seasons. Didn't win a game last year. Hasn't won a game yet this year. So you can't really get mad at who you have on the schedule. You just got to go out and compete. And they did that on Tuesday. Took care of a Martinsville team that has struggled as of late, and it kind of felt like that Floyd County overtime loss is kind of what began the struggles for the Bulldogs or Lady Bulldogs for Martinsville.
Definitely, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's the first time that the Cavaliers and Lady Bulldogs are matching up in district play.
Yep.
And so, I mean, you mentioned it. The girls last year only had 2 victories overall, so 2 district victories for them now. Good, strength building year. Even though they're 3-8 on the season, you still look for those little positives where you can.
Yeah, those little positives down the stretch can kind of help towards building a program up. I mean, we talked about with like volleyball, for example, struggled last year. They picked up a few more wins this year, played a little bit more competitively this year. Just using that as an example. But that's kind of what you want to see out of a program with new leadership, young talent. You kind of get to see that with the Lady Cavaliers for their basketball team this year.
Definitely. I mean, it's almost kind of like they're trying to rebuild back to their, state championship team that they had just from a couple of years ago.
Absolutely. And talking about a team that's capable of winning a state championship, the Galax Maroon Tide, they took care of business pretty convincingly against the Lady Buffaloes. We talked about it a few weeks ago, the first matchup in Galax for the Lady Buffs when they took on the Maroon Tide. A little bit closer this time around, but it's still hard to say it's a little bit closer. The final score was 57-20. A second straight loss at home, especially in the fashion that was. Obviously, we talked about it. Galax is probably one of, if not the favorite, to win the Class 1 state championship for girls basketball this year. Their 2 losses are to George Wythe, so you could argue that George Wythe has their number, and it could be down to those 2. But tough loss for them on Wednesday. Just a lot of struggles overall. They had a strong first 2 minutes, but once Galax finally had some shots land and developed some consistency defensively, it just kind of fell out of reach for the Lady Buffs, and the scoreboard would kind of show that.
And especially on top of that, that game came literally 22 hours after they had wrapped up that final whistle against the Bobcats. So just playing on short rest too added a bunch into that Galax game. And I don't want to say you almost kind of entering that contest knowing you're going to lose, but it's almost something you enter, just go out there, have fun, play against strong competition, and just see where those positives you can find are, see what you can attack against a solid competitor, and kind of just see where you line up, see what can work against a really solid team.
Yeah, that's kind of the conversation where it's, you make yourself better by playing tough competition. Obviously, it's hard to look at a 40-point loss and say, how did we get better? But they also didn't lose as bad as they did when they went to Galax, so something to build on. Obviously, like you said, coming off limited rest against a physical Bobcats team, maybe that took a toll on them on Wednesday night, but it's not really much you can say. You play the games that are scheduled and you just kind of roll with the punches, if you will.
Definitely.
So I think we got a couple more games coming up we'll talk about, but first we'll go to commercial and we'll be back, wrap up the week, and of course preview what's coming up next week and, well, what could come next week, weather pending, but that's here to come on Citizen Sports Talk.
Welcome back to Citizen Sports Talk. Kaden Reinhard with Jacob Smith here, about halfway through this week of basketball action. Just Thursday and Friday left. On Thursday, our very own Aiden Cox was able to travel down to Carroll, cover their action. Jacob, you want to start us off there?
Absolutely, Caden. Obviously, we talked about it before the break. Carroll County losing 4 straight games at this, or going into this game, 3 straight in the district. Obviously, their district losing streak wouldn't be affected with this game, but their actual losing streak overall would be affected. Dominant performance for the most part, 30-point win, 84-53 over the Galax Maroon Tide. Isaiah Easter, I think this is the big highlight of the night for Carroll County. Obviously, they broke the 4-game losing streak with that win, but Isaiah Easter scored his 1,000th point in the win. His total stat line for the night, 31 points, 8 rebounds, 4 steals, and 4 assists. And Aiden Cox, as we mentioned, he traveled down there, was able to catch Coach Barnes and Isaiah Easter after their win over the Maroon Tide on Thursday.
Coach Barnes, Isaiah, congratulations on the win. Congratulations, Isaiah, for hitting your 1,000 points. So, Coach, this first question is for you. So after a tough 4-game stretch, what did you like most about how your team bounced back?
Well, I mean, we're getting to the point where we got to have wins, and this is, if you looked around at the crowd, this is a big crowd. It always is, because they're next door rivals. And I just told the guys we just got to come out full of effort and energy, and they did. And we started, getting some turnovers on them and getting to the rim. We're kind of, I didn't say it was do or die, but we need to get back on the winning side of things. And it's I'm just proud of the effort from the top to the bottom for the whole 32 minutes.
Sir, absolutely. Isaiah, again, congratulations on hitting your 1,000th point. You had another effective game, scoring 31. What has it taken for you? What has helped you the most, just being so effective offensively for your team?
I think we just share the ball well, and we come out with high energy, and we just trust what Coach puts in. And, we trust each other a lot. So,
quick turnaround for you guys playing tomorrow at James River. So what's most important for you guys going into that one, as well as the other district matchups?
Well, anybody in our district, Isaiah, tell you, I mean, you can go anywhere. You can go down to Patrick. You can go to James River. Anybody can beat anybody on a given night. And James River had Radford on the ropes down there. So kind of reached out and done some stuff with Coach Fisher over at Radford and kind of got his breakdown. And I tell you, they're dangerous. And anytime you travel, I've always said, and he'll tell you, even traveling on the buses with football, you travel that far, you're kind of tight. You get there, you've been on the bus so long. But we tip at 5:30, so I think that's in our favor that we don't tip late. But they're dangerous. They got a couple guards. Humphreys does a really great job down there, and we've been down there before and not play well in the first half, and you let them hang around, you could be in trouble. But I think if we come with this effort and energy that we come with tonight, I mean, we should be able to take care of business tomorrow evening.
Thank you, Aiden, going down to Carroll, covering that game for us. And, of course, thank you to Coach Barnes and for Isaiah Easter taking your time after that to talk with Aiden. Sticking with Cavalier basketball, the boys and the girls had a chance to travel down 81 to Buchanan tonight on Friday at the night of filming for their matchups against the Knights. Unfortunately, we don't have a score update from the girls' contest. The Lady Cavaliers looking to continue, get back closer to 500, move either to 4-8 on the year or 3-9. Wish we could provide a score update there. But the boys, they unfortunately did drop their contest against the Knights, a close single possession game, 64-61, with the James River coming away with the victory. The boys dropping to 7-9 on the season. Their 4th straight district loss. I mean, they hopped out, got the win over Galax, kind of tried to build momentum after dropping, 3 straight district games. You thought could have brought some in. It almost looked like they did, a contest where they stayed in it for, all the way up until the final whistle. But unfortunately now they've dropped their last 5 out of 6.
Yeah, it's hard, these mid-season, not necessarily collapses, but more like a skid where or a slump would be the best way to describe it. Just some of these winnable games that you've been in, close games, of course, that you've been within reach for. Always hard when you're on the losing side of it, but there's always, opportunities, like you said, to build off of them. And sometimes they are frustrating. And that's a good kind of segue to the other boys game for us tonight. Floyd County at Glenvar. Floyd County's second straight loss, both losses within single digits, and we talked about it before we got started. They lost at Glenvar last year. They did split the series, so they won at home, a close win, or close games both ways, and then they split the series with Radford, losing in Radford. So not necessarily make or break those 2 losses this week for Floyd County down the stretch.
Definitely. I mean, any road game is always kind of tough to win, especially in district play when, these teams are going to want to be protecting their home turf or home court, you could say. And, this late surge kind of getting into February action when the season's winding down, you're fighting for playoff points, when road games a road win adds a couple extra points, it's almost like you need to protect the other teams from getting an extra point over you, I guess.
Yeah, so looking at it, you talk about playing on the road. Floyd County's 3 losses have been in Martinsville, in Radford, and in Glenvar. Those are 3 tough places to play. I mean, the Dog Pound we talked about a few weeks ago, at Radford, the atmosphere at Radford, always very difficult to play in. Of course, Glenvar, they always come out and bring a crowd with them. So obviously tough to accept in the moment, but of course all 3 of these teams have to come to Allen Cantrell Court in the final weeks of the season.
I was just about to say, I mean, home field advantage or home court advantage, Allen Cantrell with Buffalo country here has it just about as good as anybody else. So it's really just a testament to the Three Rivers District as a whole. Only adding Martinsville is going to increase that play. I mean, going up to Allegheny was just kind of such a out there. It's hard for them to travel. It's hard for the fans, for Floyd to travel. I mean, we talked about the Carroll travel to James River earlier. I had another hour on that to get to Allegheny, so that was a hard travel. That Martinsville really just adds an extra level to the Three Rivers District, I think.
Yeah, and that Martinsville's basketball program for the boys has taken a step up this year. Again, bringing a new coach, he is able to bring out the best in his young team, talented team, and that's obviously provided them success here in the Three Rivers their first year in the district. But you're talking about the home field of Allen Cantrell Court. That's where we wrap up talking about games this week. Me and Aiden Cox were on the call tonight as the Floyd County girls, Lady Buffs, were taking on the Glenvar Highlanders. Definitely a winnable game for Floyd County, as Glenvar has not won a game this season or at all last season. So definitely a winnable game for the Lady Buffs, and it was a neck and neck first 4 or 5 minutes of the game, and ever since then, Floyd County was just able to pull away. Karleigh Wade had 25 points. She had a strong performance late in the second half specifically, and outside of Karleigh Wade, it really felt like a strong team performance. Everybody was getting involved, and of course, divvying the minutes between first team, second team, bench players when you're up by 50. But yeah, a good win, a get right win to kind of get over that little slump that the Lady Buffs had this week, dropping those 2 straight games. And I got to talk to Coach Snead and Karleigh after the game, and here's what they had to say over the win over the Highlanders. Of course, congratulations on the dominant performance tonight. The slow start in the first quarter, they had some opportunities and they capitalized. What did your team do in the second quarter and the second half as well to really solidify the momentum late?
We just kept working and just playing defense hard. I told them it would come. Eventually our shots would start falling, and as long as we played hard and stayed after them and didn't let them get easy shots, we would be okay.
Talking about the two losses earlier this week, Radford and Galax, what did your team have to do in practice yesterday and tonight to rebound from those two losses earlier this week?
Actually, in practice yesterday, we sort of sat down and had a little talk about what we needed to do and where we were at in this part of the season. And I guess one of the biggest things is just a lot of pin-up frustration from this week in the last two games, and we were just able to unleash it tonight.
So now transition to you, Karleigh. 25-point performance, phenomenal second half. What helped you have that strong performance late, and what did your teammates do to help you out in that second half?
I mean, my teammates believed in me, and they got me the ball because they knew I was doing good. But, it's just a team game, and, yeah.
Thinking about 2 years ago compared to last year, what makes you think this team has the ability to make a potential postseason run late in February and early March?
I mean, we have a lot of really good shooters, and we just play really good together as a team. I mean, even off the court, we're always, with each other and picking each other up on the court. Our energy is really good, and I think that's what helps our team too. Yeah.
Congrats on the win, guys. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Snead. Thank you, Karleigh. And, of course, thank you, Jacob, for the interview. Always nice when we get to do one on our home court. Transitioning to the very up in the air next week schedule, we'll say. Of course, the thing that comes from the air, the snow, barring any pending rescheduling, of course, for the Buffaloes, we'll start there. Already some reschedules that are supposed to be happening next week. Like on Monday, we'll start there. Basketball triple header, which is a reschedule against Auburn. All three teams, no girls JV against Auburn, but all three teams will be traveling up Route 8 to the Eagles, a little battle of Route 8 there. Nothing on Tuesday. Wednesday's action will be girls basketball, JV and varsity. They'll be traveling down to Pulaski for their matchup against the Cougars. And then on Thursday, it'll be boys action, JV and varsity, hosting Blacksburg. That's another reschedule that got slotted into this already shaky week. Then on Friday, slowly ending the week for the Buffaloes, it's a basketball quad against Patrick, where the boys traveling down to Stewart, and then the girls will be hosting Patrick. Also on Friday, boys varsity wrestling will be traveling to Glenvar for their first day of a two-day tournament, where as well, following their matchup on Friday with them, they'll be going back down Saturday to continue that tournament. And then for the Cavaliers, they start their action on Monday as well, just boys basketball. Then JV and varsity will be hosting the Blue Demons in Christiansburg. That is in Carroll, excuse me. And then on Tuesday, basketball quad against Patrick. Girls will be traveling down to Stewart, and then boys will be hosting in Carroll, as well as the Cavaliers varsity boys and girls swim and dive team will be traveling to Salem to take on Glenvar for their matchups there. Midway through the week on Wednesday, girls basketball will be hosting Abingdon in Carroll. Then on Thursday, following that, girls right back into action. They get to travel down past Roanoke to Magna Vista, while the boys travel to Roanoke to Glenvar for their matchup against the Highlanders. Then on Friday, wrapping up the week for basketball for Cavaliers, it'll be the girls JV versus Eastmont, and then the varsity gets to host Glenvar, both in Carroll, but just a little bit of a different matchup. I don't believe that Glenvar has a JV girls team,
That's
if I'm
correct.
right on that. And then as well we just mentioned the boys for Floyd Wrestling with their tournament in Glenvar. Cavaliers will be partaking in that on Friday and Saturday as well. But then on Friday as well, the girls wrestling, they travel down to Franklin to start their regionals as well. That's a 2-day tournament, Friday and Saturday for them.
Yeah, a lot pending, of course. You said up in the air. I think a better way to say it would be up in the clouds, or up to the clouds, if you will. A lot that could happen next week, a lot that couldn't happen next week. But we'll be here this time next week, assumably, and we'll be able to break everything down for you. But of course, we thank you for tuning in to another episode of Citizen Sports Talk. Jacob Smith.
Kaden Reinhard.
Thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of your weekend, ladies and gentlemen.